All right, so now we've got the data set that we entered in Google Sheets. And now that it's entered, we can perform some analyses on it. So first, I'm going to show you how to do an independent samples t-test with these data. And for this, let's just compare the men's height, which is here, with the women's height, which is here. For an independent samples t-test, you want to compare two independent groups, in this case men and women, on a single intervally scaled variable, which in this case is height. So we're going to compare men's and women's height and see if there's a difference on average between their heights, and there probably will be. So the way that you do that is, let's just write a little note so we know that what's beneath here is an independent t-test value. Okay, so first, whenever you're doing an analysis in Google Sheets, you got to start with an equal sign. That tells Google Sheets that some command for a statistical analysis is coming up. We're going to do a t-test, and you always say the kind of analysis first, and then you put something in the parentheses to tell it what to analyze. So we're going to compare this data set, which is the men's height, and then we're going to put a comma in, and we're going to compare that to this data set, which is women's height. And so those are the two data sets that are being compared. Let me put another comma in, and then we have to tell Google Sheets whether they're doing a one-tailed test or a two-tailed test. And you can read about that in the chapter that talks about t-tests. So you'll know what this refers to. I won't go into it here, but we're going to do a two-tailed t-test. All right, and then the final thing after you tell it whether you're doing a one-tailed or a two-tailed t-test is you have to tell it a little bit of information about what kind of test you're doing, because there's different kinds of t-tests, and they involve different types of t-tests that involve whether you assume variances in the two groups are equal or not equal, and there's little technicalities, and you can account for these in Google Sheets or in Excel when you're doing a t-test. You don't really need to know all the details of this. You just need to know that we're doing a type 3 test, so what you would enter here is 3. Then you hit return to get a number. And this number that we get is a p-value. So this tells you the probability of getting a difference between the two sample means this large by chance is 0.00129, rounds to 0.001. So you would expect to get a difference between these two sample means this large by chance about 1 in 1,000 times. So that's very small, and it is much smaller than our typical alpha level of 0.05. And because the p-value is smaller than our typical alpha level of 0.05, we are led to the conclusion that our results are statistically significant, that the difference between these two sample means did not occur by chance, and they reflect an actual difference between the population means. And then we can tell by looking at these two that men on average are taller than women on average in the populations, because our result is statistically significant. So that's how you do an independent t-test in Google Sheets.